Hey guys, before we get into things, please subscribe to our channel and make sure you turn on notifications so you know every time we post. And also, head over to our social pages, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram so you can see clips and chat wrestling with us. But now, let's get into the video. Yo, what's going on, guys? C2 Wrestling back. Raw last night, awesome. NXT debut tonight on the CW11. But Snowden, we have to talk about the absolute biggest moment of the night as my cat goes crazy. And that is right. The New York Mets won game one of the wild card. Big win
Big
on to
win.
game two.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Trick Williams, new NXT champion, ends the show. Solid show top to bottom.
Yeah.
I know you weren't able to
Absolutely.
start from the beginning because of the new network, but what do you think of the show
Yes.
as a whole?
I thought it was pretty solid. I am going to be a little bit nitpicky tonight, if I'm being
Mhm.
honest. I'm going to nitpick a little bit here. But you're correct. I did not catch the opening match. I did not catch Roxanne versus Julia. Unfortunately, I had to stay late at the fun convention.
Mhm.
Um, but it is what it is. I was able to catch most of that match, honestly, on Twitter, X, throughout the night, just in between stuff. And it seemed solid for the most part of what I saw. But it wasn't really the fun convention that held me back. I come home and I'm like, you know what? It's commercial. Let me go back. I'll watch the match. And I forgot to record it on the CW. Used to record on USA. I had to go back and change it. Not my fault. It's 2024. Get it together, cable. I don't know what to tell
Yeah.
you. Figure out a better system. Anyways, it was a pretty good show. I feel like this show was built around matches, but it was really kind of like the overall endings, the trick winning, the core return. It's these bigger moments that really made the show memorable. Um, Getting right into it again, I kind of missed that women's match. What I started out seeing was Wesley versus Zachary Wentz. That's where I began the show. And it was good. It was a little not great though. I don't know how to really put it. To me, it was a little spotty. I don't know. Something about it didn't really flow as well as I wanted to for two guys that are great in the ring, if I'm being honest, and two guys that I really enjoy. A couple spots that I just thought were a little like, they missed the table. It was a little rough. I feel like that's a spot you got to kind of hit. I seen people online saying it looked even gnarlier that he missed the table. I disagree. I feel like you got to get put through that table in that type of spot. It's okay. Go to recover. I feel like the way Zachary Wentz got in the ring, he kind of like laid himself on the chair. There were some like weird spots that I didn't think flew too well, flown too well, however you want to say it. But
Flowed
I wanted to ask you, flowed. Yeah, we'll go with that, flowed.
from Progressive.
Um, I wanted to ask you what you thought about that match. Actually, where did you see any flaws, anything in that match?
Yeah, I thought it was all right. Like, I didn't think it was
Yeah.
like, do I think it could have been better? For sure. I don't think it was as good as their first match.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was a high bar to begin with.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything where I'm like, oh, this is a stinker. I thought it was an enjoyable match. I thought a lot of the matches tonight were just solid. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
their PLE level, but they weren't
Yeah.
bad by any means. And it was an enjoyable show. I did feel at times you could see there's a bit of an adjustment, especially in the main event on hitting your times. They
Mm-hmm.
have a hard out at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
News
That's gonna
comes
be
on.
tough. Yeah.
And you can tell towards the end of that main event, they were kind of, I don't want to say rushing, but they were going from spot to spot,
Mm-hmm.
going a little bit quicker. It was, a little noticeable. The Wentz Wesley match, though, I thought it was different. I thought there was a few spots that were different. Um, but to me, like for a bad blood feud, no pun
Mm-hmm.
intended for the PLE on Saturday, it didn't really feel like it had that kind of payoff, as weird as it
Yeah.
sounds. I expected Wesley to win, but it felt like it was just missing something.
Yeah, I mean, I assume this leads into maybe a few weeks of Wesley doing something different, and maybe Wentz and Trey Miguel return again, and maybe now we get Miguel versus Wesley or something. Who knows? I don't think this whole feud between them is over quite yet, and that's okay. I could see more out of it. I would like to see Wes go on and do different things, but I guess you could kind of run it back if you really had to. I would like to see them do it over again. Honestly, maybe recover. Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I'm a hot take here. I thought the match was a little iffy in ways, but again, they're two great talents. It's going to happen sometimes. It was still good though. Again, I feel like maybe I'm hating on a little heavy. Like it was still fine. It was a watchable match with some good spots. I just thought a little spots had me like, I thought that took out the wood. That's not something WWE does a lot. It's always
Hmm.
been a table. And that's a little indie-ish if you're gonna ask me. Maybe that's just my point of view. But and even then their fall off the apron into it was a little like lackluster. I'm not saying you got to be throwing these guys off 20-foot ladders, but I was expecting more, at least. My expectations were maybe higher than they should have been.
Yeah, I mean the entire show had some solid matches and solid moments. The opening moment, Shawn Michaels debuts the new titles. Just a few quick bullet points
Mm-hmm.
from the first show. We got a new logo, which I enjoy.
Yep.
New intro, new song, sounds
Yep.
great. Show the presentation was great. I know they're not going to be in Chicago every week. Just
Mm-hmm.
looks good. Presenting sponsor, sponsored by Progressive. I know that's not
Yep.
something most people care about, but that's huge for NXT. Them selling NXT as its own brand, it getting a presenting sponsor. I don't remember NXT ever having a presenting sponsor, especially one like Progressive. And there was a few more bullet points that I jotted down. Obviously the new titles, um, but at the same time, although it felt like this was a new show, a new start, it still felt like I was watching NXT.
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like we are transitioning into a new era, though, almost of NXT, whatever you want to call it. Uh, Black and steel. I don't know, whatever the
Yeah.
logo is now, whatever we're going to call this era. But it's great. It feels good. And listen, we're a newer channel, but I'm going to say something real quick, okay? We're often right in the world of wrestling. Okay. For those of you that don't know this yet or haven't watched enough of C2 wrestling, we're often right. Okay. We have been saying for the longest time, people online crying, oh, change this. They got to do this. The tag titles we waited a while for. Guys, it's coming. It's coming. You can't do everything all at once. We finally got new tag belts. We got a new look for the show. NXT 2.0 is dead. It's done. It's gone. We are transitioning into a new era. Trick Williams, the face of NXT, leading that pack. It was great. I think we're only on to bigger and better things. I'm sure one of your bullet points you might get into here, I'm going to bring it up, is we got some vignettes. We got a Delta vignette, it
Hmm.
seems. There was mention of Stephanie on air tonight as well. We're only getting into bigger and better things. Who knows what we're getting next week? We got a hell of a card next week as well.
Yeah, next week's card's fantastic. Big names. Potentially, maybe we get the Motor City Machine Guns debut
Mm-hmm.
because there's the tag title match. I assume we'll get new tag titles, new North American title, considering it'll probably open very similar. Michaels
Yeah.
comes
I
out.
hope we don't get a new North American title. I like the North American title.
Yeah, I'm fine with them keeping it. I just think they will since it's just an all new,
Yeah.
fresh
Yeah.
start. Um, yeah, like top to bottom, solid show. It didn't feel weird it being on a completely different network. We had Jade and
Mm-hmm.
Bianca surprise, something that we definitely didn't expect. One thing I do want to talk about though, we briefly started talking about the main event. I want to like hammer down something.
Okay.
Love Trick, you
Yeah.
know, love the moment. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but I left that match
Mm-hmm.
thinking I want to see CM Punk versus Ethan Page.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I left that match thinking, how do you not, even if down the line, do something there? It really seems like that match was more Page versus Punk than it was Page versus Trick. I would have, you know, we're gamblers here. Okay. We often have some money riding on some sports. Me? No, no. Uh, I would have put my life on the line that Trick Williams was winning the title tonight. I felt like that was a given, and it was done masterfully. Again, predictability when done right is great. That could be our quota for our quote for the entire channel. Predictability when done right is great, but there was so much back and forth between Punk and Ego there that it seems like they're almost leading into that, and maybe they are. I'm for it. I think Page has been great, man.
I completely agree. And as the match was going on, like I loved Punk being in the match. I loved his purpose in the match.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you want him for the crowd, but there were so many moments where you can almost pick up what they're saying. They're almost cutting promos to each other. And it's like, not that Trick is being overshadowed because Trick obviously is the face of NXT. And we have been saying for weeks that this first show, even when Ethan Page first won the title, like it's going to be the CW event.
Mhm.
They'll have Trick Williams win the title then. I was watching it, and as a huge fan of all three, I left feeling like I need more Ethan Page versus CM Punk.
Mhm.
And I know Trick is going to go on to something else. I know Punk is finishing up with Drew McIntyre. I don't expect that to happen right away, but I
Mhm.
would like it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it should happen in all honesty, but I don't know when they would do it. With a lot of these NXT guys, they do seem to like down the line maybe do these types of things, and they can kind of reference it back. But Ethan Page really is the guy, the gimmick, the heel to do the like Punk screwed me. I lost because of Punk type thing next week whenever he comes back to TV. And maybe they do go that route. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next with Page, assuming him and Trick is maybe kind of done for now and they move on from there. Looking forward to seeing what they do with Trick. With that said, I don't really know who the next heel to face him really is. Assuming Oba retains against Tony D next week. Something about Tony D. Love Tony D. We've talked about this. I just don't know if he's the one to take the title off Oba. But Oba's the only one I can really see maybe feuding with Trick, whether it's now or Mania season, and being the guy to beat him and take the belt.
I have a feeling Trick. I have a feeling Tony might win, but after watching like the Miz TV segment, in my head, I'm like, if Tony's gonna win, why the hell wouldn't he have won in Chicago in his hometown?
Yeah, that segment more so set me up to feel that Oba is gonna double down on the victory, win again, and is gonna send Tony maybe into some kind of spiral, ultimately
Hmm.
turning him and the family heel again. They're all great. I like the actual quad of them too, the collective, more than it just being Stacks and Tony D. But that's a heel gimmick, man. A mafia kind of family type gimmick. They would run so much better as heels.
I will say though, before we wrap things up here, NXT not having the runoff. I mean, like we know with Raw switching to 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
it did feel like there was a little bit less. I know going forward, there's going to be, it's not going to be as moment heavy. And so, they're going to be established on the CW and they can kind of script out the show to be just a normal NXT show. But it feels like a lot of times when you watch NXT, you get a lot of backstage segments of people who may not have matches to set up
Mm-hmm.
matches, whatever. Like it feels like there's a lot of segments because it just feels like, all right, we know they're going to go over past 10. They have an extra 10 or so minutes to work with. I was watching this show. The first hour flew by for me. Like
Whole show flew by.
I blinked the first hour was over. And then I blinked a half hour into the second hour was over. And then I blinked again, the second hour was over. Like that show went quick. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing,
Mm-hmm.
actually. If a show does not feel like it's dragging, that's a fantastic thing. But it almost feels like normally they get more in. I'm not saying this as like a negative. We know things will normalize, but it did feel like, maybe it's because there were so many big matches and they gave the matches, each 15 or so minutes. That's why it felt like there was less going on, only one Ava segment and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, again, maybe the matches weren't the 30-minute bangers after banger after banger, that we have gotten on some other shows. NXT for a while now. And again, I just said we're in a new era. We've kind of been in a new era, but this is the establishment of it with new logo, new titles, things like that. It's only going to go up from here again. These eras when they kind of come and happen, they bleed together a little bit. I feel like Triple H is even referencing that in the past that like there's not really eras. They all kind of mesh, they bleed into one another, the ruthless aggression, the attitude, and so on. And this era we're getting into, NXT TV might have the lowest viewership out of all the wrestling shows if we care about viewership. It might be the best booked show and has been for a while.
Oh yeah.
It's been fantastic. And I know a lot of people out there might not agree with that. If you do, great. If you don't, you're not watching every week like you say you are.
Yeah, NXT has been fantastic. One last thing before we get out of here. You texted me about this, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we'd almost be remiss to not mention it. The women were on tonight to open the show. We're starting to get the debuts of all the signed talent that we've known about for a few weeks to a few months now. Julia makes her in ring title match debut, her second match in NXT. We see the vignette for Delta. We know Stephanie is coming soon. There's rumors of other signings. This is one of, if not the most stacked top to bottom women's rosters we've seen in any wrestling company ever.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy to see it all in one company. And when you really are getting down to it, it's all WWE. We can say it's the NXT roster, but the way they crossed over this talent now too, it's only even more expanding than just the roster itself. But even if I'm gonna solidify it to just the NXT women's roster, I think it beats out the SmackDown and the Raw right now, if I'm being honest. And they got some great stars on both sides, but it's the most must see right now. That's for sure. Something about it being so fresh, new. It's in right now. We really are. The feeling I have inside is reminiscent of those early black and gold days where everything felt special.
I completely agree. It feels like that show ended, and I was like, wow, if there wasn't a stacked SmackDown and a great PLE on Saturday, and honestly, a pretty solid AEW card on Wednesday before next Tuesday, I'd be like, oh my God, get me to next Tuesday. I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait for that. But we already have great shows coming up on the calendar, and we have great videos coming up on the calendar. This Thursday,
I mean,
podcast
just
drop.
say there's actually breaking news. They just said Trick Williams has to give the title back to Ethan Page because he didn't win it in the first 20 minutes.
See,
Ah,
it was in the fine print on the graphic. I must have missed it. That's terrible journalism by me. But we have the podcast dropping Thursday, Bad Blood predictions, SmackDown video Snowden will provide Friday as your boy is snoozing because of work. Saturday, Bad Blood. You got to be here. Soon as the show ends, we'll be working on post show videos, dropping that. More shows coming the following week. Socials, Snowden, you already know where it's at.
TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. We're on all the apps. Check them out. Podcast. I don't even know what we're on, to be honest with you. You know the deal. Comment, like down below. C2 Wrestling.